Hi, I'm Gvido, and I'm from FlexBI. And I've been using eazyBI platform for around 7 years now. And back when I started to use eazyBI, there were not really any resources available to learn, or any teachings available to learn how to use eazyBI and how to write, specifically how to write MDX queries. So back in the day, I had to teach myself or self-learn how to do that. And during the years now, I have shared my knowledge and with other people, and I have trained a lot of partners and customers on how to write MDX and make reports. And today, I just wanted to take some time to share some insights about learning MDX. And when I was preparing for this, eazyBI eazyBI told me that the common question that I get from people is how to learn MDX. And the interesting thing is that that's not an easy question to answer, because writing MDX queries is not just like one thing you know how to do. It's a process that has multiple steps. So today, I want to take some time and go through the process and show you what's involved in writing MDX queries. And I'll just try to illustrate that. And I feel like a lot of people have a misconception of what is MDX good for. And a lot of people think that, oh, if I know how to write MDX, then I will know how to make reports well. And in my experience, the opposite is actually true. People who know how to make good reports are gonna be much better off writing MDXs. It's easier to teach them, they understand it better, they're more efficient. And that brings me to the point of MDX, that MDX is just an automation or simplification of report creation. There are some limitations, of course, when creating reports, but generally speaking, that's what it is. Then this is going to be a list of necessary components of learning MDX, or necessary components of writing MDX queries. So first of all, you need, like I mentioned, you need the understanding of report creation. Then you need to understand the function flow, and I will illustrate and show you how that works. Then you need to understand data types. Then you need to understand how to write those data, how to write the syntax of MDX. And the last thing, in order to get good and efficient with all of that, you need to practice and memorize MDX functions. So in order to illustrate the process, let's take this task or example, right? We need to find the average time spent on issues that were created and resolved in the selected time period, which is going to be 2022 for us, right? So we will need to select a list of issues, make sure that we select issues that are resolved and created in 2022. And then for those issues, we will need to find how much time, how many days have been spent on them, and then we need to calculate the average for that, right? And I'll show you again visually that, and we'll walk through the process. So let's start with report creation and function flow and how these two work together. So let's start with report creation. In order to get the average time spent on issues, what we need to do is to select a list of issues, right? We just drag and drop into the rows, select list of issues, and now we have list of issues. So we just did one operation that's important to that's going to be important in our function flow. So let's write that down, right? So we're going to make a graph here. So we selected all hierarchy level members, and we got a list of issues. Next, we needed issues that were created in the time period and also resolved. So let's enable issues resolved in the report as well. Then we needed issues that were created and resolved in 2022. So let's select 2022. And now we can already see that here in the report there are issues created that were not created in 2022. So we will need to get rid of them or filter them out from the list. We will do that with filtering. So let's add that to our graph. So we will need to filter those issues. Okay? And how are we going to do that? We're going to use the filter functionality of eazyBI. Select if bigger than 0. Then we will filter the issues created. And we have to keep in mind that we need to do the same thing for issues resolved. Okay, let's add those to the graph. So we will take the list of issues, see if the issues created is bigger than 0. If yes, then we're gonna move on to through the hierarchy, let's say. If no, we're gonna throw those issues out. We don't need them. And we will do the same thing for issues resolved. Then, since we need to figure out what's the time between when the issues were created and resolved, we need to get the issue created date in issues resolved date. Those we're going to use in the reports, okay? So let's add those to our graph. That's going to be a separate section. And now, what we need to do, we need to calculate how many days are in between them. So here's one of the limitations of report creation. And in order to solve this, you actually will need to look up functions. But since we're going to do that later, let's imagine that we know how to do this already, right? So we know that, oh yeah, there will be a function or thing we do that calculates the workdays difference. Then, now we have the workdays difference, and the last thing we added to the graph right here, and the last thing we need to do is calculate what's the average. So again, we can use eazyBI's standard calculation, get the average, and we have the result for this process. And so this is how we do it in report creation. And now we just need to take the same thing, what we did in report, and put it in MDX, in an MDX calculation. And one more reason why it's very, very good to know how to make reports or how to represent what you did in MDX in the reports, so that you can test your MDX queries. So if you write, you need to make sure that's working correctly. So if you know how to make a report to get the same result, you can use that to test all your queries. Now, the next step, what we need to do, so this is what we put together, and the next step, what we will do, we will add data types to our workflow that we put together, right? So first of all, a list of issues is a set. I will not get into too much detail. That could be a separate topic, but let's assume that we know how it works. You can investigate that later. So in general, very simply put, a list of issues will be a set expression, right? And that's what we're going to filter. These two expressions, bigger than 0, bigger than 0, those are true, false, and true, false are logical expressions. Then we're going to filter issues, and we will still get a list of issues. We're going to move forward, and that still is going to be a set expression. These two will be date time expressions, and then this day difference, that will be a numeric expression, because we will get a number out of that. So, okay, we put together now our data types. So what are they good for now, you might ask? Okay, the next step, what we need to do is now we need to figure out what kind of functions we need to put in that list. And in order to find the functions, we need to know data types, or at least it's very, very useful. For example, I personally use this documentation page for writing my queries or learning about MDX. This is my main resource, and when I teach other people about MDX, this is I preach this as their main source of information. Okay, so we figured out that first we needed. So first thing we need now is how do we get a list of members from a specific level, because we wanted just issues, not projects and issues, right? And in order to do that, let's go to set functions, because we wanted to return set, right? So now we know which section we can go. We can read through the list, and yes, back in the day when I was learning this, I actually went through the whole list and read every single line and tried to figure out, oh, does this do my thing what I need, right? Of course, you can use other resources like eazyBI community, but I still recommend, if you get a formula, come back here, open up every formula and read what they do. In order to understand them, you need to understand data types. So let's say we read through the list, we find descendants. It says returns set of descendants of a member at a specific level, so we can get members from a specific level. And in addition to that, we also get a bonus that if we select a specific project, we will get issues only from that project. Okay, that sounds good. How does it work? You open up the documentation, see, oh, this is the function. It takes two parameters. One of them is member expression, one of them is level expression. You can see examples. Okay, this sounds something I need. And so let's put it in the list, right? It had two arguments, member expressions, level expression, so we put those in. Then we will move on to the filter. Many of you are probably familiar, but you can just do the same thing. You can go to set functions, go through the list, find filter, returns a set of resulting from filtering a set based on search condition. So there is search condition that filters a set of members. Okay, this is how you write it. Set expression, logical expression, set expression, logical. That is exactly what we need. Let's put that in our function flow. Now, we also need to figure out what was this function. Again, we will return a numeric expression used to date times. So this time, instead of going to set functions, we need to get a number, so we go to numeric functions, and if you go through the list, returns the difference in work days from first date to second date. Sounds good. Takes from date to date. Some examples. That's exactly what we need. So we now can fill that up. And then we can do the same for the average function, but I think you got the process already. So now we have our function flow, so how everything is going to work together compared to reporting. We know a couple of functions. Now we need to fill out the MDX syntax. Now it's time to start writing the MDX queries. So before we put together all the functions, we still need to fill out some missing pieces like member expression, level expression, and these two. So how do you write the member expression? In this example, we need to select what is in this report currently selected, right? What issue are we looking at? In order to do that, we will reference in the report this dimension. So we're going to just put this name into the report and write current hierarchy member. Right? So this is our member expression. Now we need to know how to write levels. How do you write levels? Again, you will take a look at the dimension, put that name in these brackets, and then you put in the level that you need. So that is how you can write levels. We put that in. Now we could get now issues created date. We could write our manual query, but you don't actually need to do that. You can open up a report creation window, find what you need here in list, click the button and eazyBI will give you the formula. So you can just copy paste this formula and then put it in our MDX queries. Then we can do the same thing for the resolution date. And now it is time to put it all together. And this is going to be, I think, very simple. We will just start here. Current hierarchy member. We take this one. We put a comma and put this one in the list. These two are combined into descendants. So we just put descendants in the brackets, put those in. Then we have, next to these, we have two logical expressions. So one of them is issues created bigger than 0. We put that here. Next to that, we have issues resolved. This time we need to use AND, because that's a logical expression. That's a syntax thing. Now we need to put these two together. And all we need to do is write filter and add that into brackets. And of course, add a comma between. Now we have covered this section. We've written that in the MDX query. Now it's time to write this section. So we will take the issues created date, comma, issues resolution date. Again, we put this into brackets and combine it into date diff workdays. And now we need to combine this tree with this tree together. And it's, again, we put the average and put the brackets and comma in between them. And that is the very in-depth process on how to write MDX queries. And I personally don't draw this graph in practice, but this is what happens in my mind when I'm thinking about MDX and when I'm looking at other people's MDX queries. This is what I see in my mind. It's like, okay, it takes a member and returns and it goes together. This is how I see it. Now, in summary, the necessary steps for writing MDX, or necessary knowledge, is understanding of report creation, understanding of function flow, knowing what kind of data types are available and what they do. Then you need to know how to write that down in MDX syntax. And the last thing is just practicing and memorizing the MDX functions. And you can also look at the MDX as just a puzzle, because you have a lot of functions and you need to figure out how do you put all these functions together to get your result. Now, I did explain to you how to go through the process, but I don't want to leave you empty-handed, so I added some useful links to the presentation, where here is a link to a section in documentation where eazyBI has put together great training videos on how to build reports, so you can go and take a look there. Then for data types, Zane made a great presentation where she covers those data types. I think that's, if you want to learn more about data types, I would highly suggest checking that out. Then for MDX syntax, there's not really a one universal presentation or data source, but this presentation by Ilse, build your own MDX calculation gradually, is a good start. And then, of course, eazyBI has a whole section in the training videos and specific topics on MDX, where you can go through them and maybe learn that from different perspectives. And of course, a very useful resource is the community page, where you can get ideas, solutions. But again, if you are really serious about learning MDX, I highly suggest that if you get a formula, you open up the documentation and see what it does, what kind of arguments it takes, so that the next time you see that, you're like, oh, I know what this does. And we also offer training programs, or I lead training programs, where I have 3 different programs, where one of them is Report Master, where we go through everything you can do in report creation. Then there is a program MDX Guru that covers all the data types, syntax, and about creating MDX queries. And then there's very niche data admin training that covers how to build data cubes from scratch. All of these trainings are focused also, there's a lot of focus in those trainings on practicality, on practical application. So you will be creating and working yourself for the training. And so that's why I try to keep the groups very small in the training so that I can follow through with everyone and answer every question and take a look at every solution that you show me during the training. That's it for me. Thank you for your attention, and I hope this was useful.